The galaxy was vast, filled with wonders and horrors beyond imagination. Among the countless species that populated the stars, the Xytherians were perhaps the most enigmatic. Their skin shimmered like molten lava, radiating heat that could melt steel. They were a proud and ancient race, their civilization spanning millennia. And at the heart of their empire was Princess Zynara, the most beautiful and untouchable of them all. Zynara was not just a symbol of her people's strength. She was a living flame, a being of such intense heat that even her own kind dared not touch her without protective suits. Her fiery skin was both a gift and a curse, a reminder of her power and her isolation. For centuries, she had watched as suitors from across the galaxy tried to win her heart, only to be burned by her very presence. No one could withstand her heat. No one could come close. Until he arrived. The human was an anomaly. A species so young, so fragile, yet so audacious that they had somehow managed to carve out a place among the stars. They were not the strongest, nor the fastest, nor the most technologically advanced. But they were relentless, curious, and above all brave. His name was Captain Elias Drake, an explorer and diplomat from Earth. He had been sent to the Xytherian homeworld to negotiate an alliance, a task many considered impossible. The Xytherians were isolationists, wary of outsiders. But Elias was undeterred. He had faced impossible odds before and lived to tell the tale. When he first laid eyes on Princess Zynara, he was struck by her beauty. Her skin glowed like the heart of a star, her eyes burning with an intensity that could sear through steel. She was unlike anything he had ever seen. And yet, there was a sadness in her gaze, a loneliness that called to him. The court was assembled in the grand hall of the Xytherian palace, a towering structure forged from black obsidian and glowing magma. Elias stood before the throne. His simple human form a stark contrast to the towering fiery figures around him. The air was thick with heat, and sweat dripped down his face, but he stood tall. His eyes locked on Zynara. "You are bold, human," Zynara said, her voice like the crackle of a wildfire. "Many have come before you, seeking my favor. All have failed. What makes you think you will succeed where they have not?" Elias smiled, a gesture that seemed out of place in the austere hall. "Because I'm not here to win your favor, princess. I'm here to understand you, to listen, to learn." The court murmured, a low rumble like distant thunder. Zynara tilted her head, intrigued. "And what do you hope to gain from this understanding?" "Peace," Elias said simply. "An alliance between our peoples. A future where we can learn from each other." Zynara studied him for a long moment. "You are either very brave or very foolish, human. Perhaps both." "I've been called worse," Elias replied with a grin. Over the following weeks, Elias spent countless hours with Zynara. They walked through the glowing gardens of the palace, their conversations ranging from politics to philosophy to the simple joys of life. Elias told her of Earth, of its oceans and mountains, of its people and their dreams. Zynara, in turn, shared the history of her people, their struggles and triumphs, and the weight of her own isolation. As they grew closer, Elias began to notice the toll her fiery nature took on her. She was a prisoner of her own power, unable to touch or be touched without causing harm. The loneliness in her eyes deepened, and Elias found himself wanting to ease her pain. One evening, as they stood on a balcony overlooking the molten rivers of the Xytherian capital, Zynara turned to him. "Why do you not fear me, Elias? My touch could burn you to ash in an instant." Elias looked at her, his gaze steady. "Because I see you, Zynara. Not just the fire but the person beneath it. And I think you've been alone long enough." Zynara's eyes widened, and for a moment, the flames around her flickered. "You speak as if you could change that." "Maybe I can," Elias said. "If you'll let me." The next day, Elias made a decision that would change everything. He approached Zynara in the grand hall, the court watching in stunned silence. He held out his hand, his palm bare and unprotected. "Elias, what are you doing?" Zynara asked, her voice trembling with a mix of fear and hope. "I want to show you that you're not alone," Elias said. "That you don't have to be afraid of hurting me." "You don't understand," Zynara said, stepping back. "My touch is death to your kind. I cannot control it." "Then I'll take that risk," Elias said, stepping closer. "Because I believe in you. And I believe in us." The court erupted in protests, but Elias ignored them. He reached out, his hand hovering just inches from Zynara's. She stared at him, her fiery eyes filled with uncertainty. "Trust me," Elias whispered. For the first time in her life, Zynara felt something other than heat. It was a strange, unfamiliar sensation, like a cool breeze on a scorching day. She hesitated, then slowly, tentatively reached out her hand. Their fingers touched. The heat was intense, almost unbearable, but Elias didn't pull away. He gritted his teeth, his skin reddening, but he held on. And then something miraculous happened. The heat began to subside, the flames around Zynara dimming. Her skin, once molten, cooled to a warm, gentle glow. The court gasped. Zynara stared at their joined hands, tears of liquid fire streaming down her cheeks. How is this possible?" Elias smiled through the pain. "Because you're not just fire, Zynara. You're also light. And light doesn't have to burn." In that moment something shifted between them. The barriers that had kept Zynara isolated for so long began to crumble. She no longer saw herself as a danger, but as someone who could be loved and cherished. And Elias, with his unwavering courage and compassion, had shown her the way. As the days turned into weeks, their bond grew stronger. The Xytherians, once skeptical of the human, began to see him in a new light. He had done what no one else could. He had touched the untouchable, and in doing so, had bridged the gap between their worlds. One evening, as they stood together under the twin moons of Xytheria, Zynara turned to Elias. "You have given me a gift I never thought possible," she said. "You have shown me that I am more than my fire. That I can be loved." Elias took her hand, his touch gentle. "And you've shown me that there's more to this universe than I ever imagined. That even the stars can be touched, if you're brave enough." Zynara smiled, her fiery skin glowing softly. "Then let us touch the stars together." And with that, she leaned in, her lips meeting his in a kiss that was both fiery and tender, a union of two souls from different worlds. The heat was still there, but it was no longer a barrier. It was a reminder of the passion and strength that had brought them together. The alliance between Earth and Xytheria was sealed, not just through treaties, but through the bond between Elias and Zynara. Together, they ushered in a new era of cooperation and understanding, proving that even the most unlikely of pairs could find common ground. And as for Elias, the human who dared to kiss the alien princess with fiery skin, he became a legend not just among his own people but across the galaxy. For he had shown that courage, compassion, and love could overcome even the greatest of obstacles.